if you believe in what you do and you're passionate about what you do, then you can figure out how to do it. Your team as well. Hiring for passion, bringing passion into the team. You can always learn the skills, develop skills that you need, but it's the passion that is key for anything. So I'd say live by passion and then learn as you go.
Shane, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Doing well. It's a pleasure to join you and excited to have this conversation today.
You know, Shane, a lot of podcasters, they have this long list of credentials for their guests and they start reading them from a paper. I am more casual and I love to show my audience the value of my guest by the word of their mouth and their experience. So let's start with your full name. Where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Sure. So Shane Pilcher. I'm the administrative director and chief information officer at Siskin Hospital in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it's a beautiful area of the country, and we get an opportunity to change lives every single day.
That is beautiful. How long have you been working there?
July will be 10 years that I've been in this role here.
That is amazing. Wow. Chattanooga, Tennessee, never been. How's the weather down there?
You got to visit. It's a little bit cold at the moment, but unusually cold, I should say. But it's a beautiful area. If you like getting outside and getting into the mountains, it's hard to beat this area.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
You know, this weather is being interesting. I was born in Guatemala. I migrated to Canada, went to computer science in Canada, where I live, the same city that I live, in 1991. And those first 10 years, Shane, the winters were like the winters we're experiencing this year. They were bitter cold, a lot of snow, sunny, because when it's very, very cold, it's hard to condensation to become clouds.
Right.
I remember that those first years, walking at minus 20 Celsius is like walking on the moon. I must guess that it's like walking on the moon.
Sure.
I remember taking those walks just to experience, making sure I don't get frostbite. We've been having minus 17, minus 22 for the last 3-4 days. And I don't remember the last time this happened. So it's a bitter cold winter in Canada too.
Oh, I bet. And I mean, the fact that our brethren to the south of us in South Georgia or northern Florida is actually seeing snow, that's a testament to just how interesting this year is.
For sure. So Shane, what is your primary focus at your current position? Like, how are you guys adding value to the organization?
So my focus is aligning our technology with our overall mission, where we're going as an organization. So for me, it's important that I understand pretty much every service line and everything that we do as an organization, to the point of as well as or better than some of the directors or the leaders in those areas, so I can anticipate kind of what they need and make sure that technology is there prior to us needing it, but also being able to build in pivot points so that we can, move with the need and even that anticipated moves, and not lose innovation or investment in what we've done so far. We can continue to move it forward as our organization evolves.
That's wonderful. So Shane, to reach a position like that, it must require a lot of discipline and a lot of different pivotal changes in your life. So I would love to go back in time and take you back to your to your university days? Did you go to university? Where do you go? What did you do at school?
Well, I had a very interesting background and pathway to here. I am a respiratory therapist by trade. So, I mean, I actually took care of patients for a long period of time, trained in the Navy, and had an opportunity when I got out of the Navy to be a respiratory therapist at a children's hospital, and found myself in the IT department a couple of years later, implementing their electronic medical records. That then kind of started me in my career, healthcare IT career. I spent about 15 years as a consultant and helping other hospitals around the country, and then joined Siskin as their CIO, like I said, about 10 years ago now. My educational background, I've got an MBA, just finished my doctorate in healthcare leadership.
Congratulations.
I remember. Yep, thank you for that. Big load off my shoulders now, but it's been a very interesting pathway here, and I guess kind of unusual, but the experiences that it's given me has allowed me to bring certain things into this role that maybe others might not have been able to.
That's beautiful. Shane, how did you get into the Navy? How old were you, and what made you decide to enlist?
Well, that's a whole nother story. That was really a God thing, honestly. I mean, I was actually studying in school. I was pre-med and looking to go to med school, and ended up finding myself in the Navy after God pretty much led me there. So I spent 8 years on active duty and then 13 years reserves as I moved in other directions. So 21 total years in the Navy.
Wow. So it was a considerable chunk of your time. Thank you so much for your service. I totally appreciate it. You know, I served for 2 years in the military back home, but just in training. I never really served. I was just in, is the school where people go get to become an official in the Army. So I was guided to actually become an official. I was supposed to become an airplane pilot.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I was in the second year of the academy, that window closed.
Right.
So I was no longer interested in becoming just a military official. So I went into computer science.
Right. And imagine if that hadn't happened, where your life would be now. I mean, it's really interesting to kind of look back and see what events or decisions you make and the pathway that it ended up leading you. So it's kind of.
But you said something that touched my heart, because I'm a Christian. I'm a man of faith, and you said that was a God thing, right? Like you were going into medical school and something happened and you got there. Well, it's pretty much the same for me. Like if the opportunity was there to become an Air Force pilot, I wouldn't have taken that chance. That was my life dream back then. But the door closed, and it was obvious to me that was no longer an option. So I'm like, what do I do now? Computer science. My dad and my uncle, they were into computer science, and they guided me through that path. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be here. Why do I want to focus a little bit on your service? We were in a 36-year-old war, civil war, mm-hmm. protecting our freedom back home. I'm from Guatemala. My brother died in that war. Sorry. And so more than 80,000 people. But we defeated the enemy. And now it's a free country because of that. Because that would have been another Cuba. They wanted to make another Cuba out of Guatemala. And we didn't allow it. So for me, when I look at the U.S. military, when I look at the Canadian Armed Services, for me it's one of the most valuable things that a human being can do, especially when actually only if you live in a free country where when we have liberties and we have Bill of Rights and Constitution, and we need to know that as long as the population are willing to die for those ideals, we will remain free, isn't it?
And it's important that we defend those freedoms, even for those that don't believe in military or in those. We actually fight for the ability to believe as you want to believe and live like you want to live, and I think those are key things. And honestly, it's part of being something bigger than yourself and contributing to a country that's worth contributing to. And like I said, just being something bigger than yourself.
Mm-hmm. And by now we all know that democracy and the republic is not the best solution to humanity, but is the better one.
Versus the alternatives that we've seen, it's definitely, and you don't have to agree with everything that your leaders believe in or do, but in believing in the ideals of the country itself, making sure that the country continues to move forward. Leadership comes and goes, but the country will remain. So that's, I think it's important that we always look at the country as a whole and not necessarily our leadership, and though we should be praying and supporting our leadership, but it's leadership comes and goes, but the country needs to be strong and stay.
The foundation, right? Yeah, there is we, like in Canada, we have right wings, left wings. It's okay as long as the population still has the vote to say, we don't like this anymore, right? Democracy.
And being at a place where we can actually discuss it, sides of a conversation, and respect each other as we do it. And that's something that I would love to see us kind of get back to. It's so polarized today that it's hard to get anything done when
all we need to do is to remember that my freedom stops where your freedom starts.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at the analogy of the neighbor's backyard and their fence, right?
Right.
I can touch I can do whatever I want up to that fence. From that on, I'm not free to do anything there because that's not my freedom, it's their freedom.
Right. Very good point. And I think a lot of what we've just talked about is very similar even in our professional lives. In your organization, you might love the group that you work with. That group changes. It doesn't always mean that you're going to be aligned with them or that you're going to see things the same way, but learning how to respect the beliefs and the viewpoints of others and work with them in spite of differences. Actually, sometimes harnessing the differences to accomplish things. That's the way life is, whether it's inside our families, inside our businesses, or anywhere else in our lives.
And even in faith, right? Like if you look at Guatemala, USA, and Canada, we're based on Christian values. Like if you look at the foundations of these countries, these countries are Christian by their founders.
Yeah.
So then you ask, why do we have so many religions in these countries? Well, if you look at the Bible, is never enforced to anybody. If you look at our faith, God will never enforce himself upon anybody.
Right.
So it's part of the same freedom, right? You have the right to believe whatever you want as long as you don't affect me. Talking back about defense, right?
I mean, honestly, I don't believe necessarily, God not necessarily intended, but religion is our framework that we put around God. It's our humanity that we put into God. So the differences there, I guess what I'm saying is God is God. The religion the rules and the things that we put in place, and it's wrong to not accept others that believe differently, because
respect.
Yeah, it's respect, Doug. Yeah,
it comes down to respect, right?
Yes.
And respect boundaries. And tell me, right after, why did you keep going in the Navy?
Why did I keep going in the Navy?
Oh no, why did you pursue a military career for the rest of your life?
Well, it's like I say, it was an opportunity to kind of just embrace a new challenge. doors open and opportunities present themselves, I follow them where they lead, and that was of course because of that I am here today. So I don't know. It's kind of where the path leads, and I see where it goes, and when the door closed, you go a different direction, kind of thing.
Beautiful. So what was that first door that make you think, it's time for me to jump out of the army the Navy and do something else?
Sure. Well, coming up on 8 years of active duty, if you're going to, if you complete the first 10 years, might as well stay the second 10 years, right? I mean, and that after 20 years you can fully retire from the military and take all the benefits with you. But so I was facing the final reenlistment before that 10-year line, and I was just at a place where, honestly, once again, it was a God thing. I just felt like that my place was being led in on the civilian side, not necessarily in the military. So followed it, ended up in Chattanooga at that time, but was able to stay in the reserves and continue that. So it really was a God thing. So
that is fantastic. So what was the first job you ever took?
First job I ever took?
Uh-huh.
First job was actually a busboy. I'm cleaning tables at a restaurant. So you learn how to be humble in that kind of a role.
How old were you?
Goodness, I was probably 16 when, and of course that was the time my mom taught me how to wash my own clothes at that time too, because I'd come home covered, and she's like, let me teach you how to take care of that. So a lot of independence there.
That's amazing. I think that's a great parenting example, right? Like if you do everything for your children when they become teenagers, you're just messing up their life, right?
I was safe when I was in the Navy. Then that helped me keep from turning my white uniforms pink by washing a sock with it that I shouldn't. So while others didn't know how to do their laundry, I knew how to take care of myself. So that was didn't necessarily like it when my mom did it to begin with, but it was definitely valuable.
For me, my first ever job, I did it myself. I wanted to start buying better clothes for myself when I was in the military academy. And a friend of mine, his dad was a very high-ranking official. So he had access to they had a special military type of Costco back then, but only officials could get in. So we will get in, buy stuff that officials will wear that was not accessible for students, and we will resell them at the school. Like boots and stuff like that,
Oh, nice. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So what was your first experience into technology? Because it's amazing. Like you have this background in medicine, then you went into the military. How did IT, computer science, came into your life?
Oh, that's really interesting too. So I do remember even as a respiratory therapist focusing on patient care in the Navy. I remember I was the first one when Palm Pilots came out. I had one. I love technology. I remember when computers started becoming available for us to document on patient care, and the internet became available. Really kind of dating myself now, but I've always had technology around me, even if that hadn't been my focus of my career. So the first time I formally entered into that field was I was actually sitting in the pediatric ICU and looking at job opportunities in the middle of the night, and there was the opportunity to join our IT department was there, and they really didn't care if you had computer science background or if you knew how to program. They wanted they wanted a clinical mindset, and so they were willing to bring in a clinician, teach them how to program or teach them how to develop in the EMR. But it was critical for them to have that clinical mindset. And it does make a difference of, understanding who you're supporting and who you're designing for, and then designing it. You can tell, software and programs that are developed by people who really don't know what, how their end users are going to be using it. That kind of started me down that pathway. And eventually I did toy with looking at, going back for our computer science degree, but my direction ended up being more in leadership and focusing on the leadership of technology, not necessarily the creation of the technology. But
that's beautiful, because for me, when I was a leader in technology, I mean, technically I'm still the CEO of one of the larger companies I have, but I don't take the decisions anymore. I just set the vision.
Right.
But when I was in that active role, I will hire my business analysts had to come from the business.
Mhm.
And then we will teach them the technology side, because you are right. Like, if they don't know how the business operates and they haven't suffered what you're trying to solve, how can you produce a good product?
True.
Right?
And what makes sense to you does not always make sense to the workflow that person will be using. So I think it's critical to come from that, or at least have a lot of experience in that business area. And you mentioned, though, that you don't make the decisions, but you lead the vision. One thing that I've found over the years is that is the difference in who, which path we end up taking, especially in technology. Do we stay with our focusing on developing the technology, or kind of boots on ground, elbow deep in the technology, or do we start migrating towards leading those organizations? Because it's that vision that separates that, right? I mean, so as long as you have really skilled team members that can do the hands-on technical piece, that doesn't always translate into be able to see how it fits down the road, and be able to develop that vision, so you're where your organization needs to be before they even know where you be. So I think it's a critical piece that not everybody has the ability to do, but making sure that your team has both that and the technical is critical.
Yeah, and Shane, I think one of the things that makes an okay technology leader from an exceptional technology leader is the one that actually sits with the top business leaders and help define the vision of the enterprise, or whatever organization you're leading. Because we live in such a time and age where technology is changing so fast, that if CEOs, CFOs, like people that are actually doing the actual business, don't take into consideration what the CIO, CTO has to say, they could actually go out of business pretty quick.
Absolutely. I believe that when it comes to the C-suite of an organization, most of the executive team can recover from bad decisions. I mean, that there might be some painful periods ahead, but most decisions you can recover from if they're wrong. There's three roles, in my opinion, at the executive level that if you make the wrong decision, can result in the organization closing their doors. And that's, of course, the CEO, the CFO, and the CIO. If any of those make the wrong decision, certain decisions that are wrong, they can be critical or detrimental to the entire organization.
Mhm.
So yes, I believe you've got to understand the business before you can wrap technology around the business. I mean, technology is a tool that we use. We need to be able to understand the business to be able to understand what tool is best to use.
And that's why it's important. I think that's important even at top government levels, right? Like, if you choose a leader to run your country, and he or she makes a bad choice in their direct reports, it's like, it doesn't matter how good they are. If they surround themselves with poor people, or poor thinking people, it's going to be a disaster, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Shane, do you think that your success in your IT career has a little bit to do with your military training,
Uh,
as far as leadership is concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that most military veterans have there's just something different about their work ethic and their willingness to step in when something's needed, whether it's their job or not. So they tend to gravitate towards leadership positions, and leadership doesn't require a title or require a role that is a leader. Leader is someone that people follow, right? And that you find those leaders, and I believe that leaders are before they're you know elevated to a leadership role. You're already leading. You just then find yourself in that role that might have the title that goes with it. But I believe the military set that foundation for me. And being willing to raise your hand whenever a need happened and take a risk and take a challenge. So that's kind of how I've lived my life, but a lot of it has come from my military background.
You know that I love to prove the stuff that I say, and I am a computer scientist first. I've been trained as an engineer, and doesn't matter how much of a businessman I became, my core is still computer science. So I see everything in patterns, and I do research. Those are the those things that has got me to where I am.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from my faith in God, for sure, right, in Jesus Christ. But like in the technical side, is the ability to recognize patterns and the ability to do research.
Right.
I don't know how I got these beautiful blessings on me. And I tell you this because if you look at most countries in the world, most of them never force their population to do military training, except Israel. And it's because they are always being attacked by all these other countries. And then if you actually look what Israel, when it was formed as a country and where they are now, in every area of industry, regardless of the amount of wars that they have gotten into throughout the years, I think I was looking at research. I think they have like 75% of all Nobel Prizes that ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
You know that? That's insane. But all of them have to go to the army 2 years. All of them, male and female.
Right.
So they actually teach them discipline and leadership values. I think that's what the pattern is. What do you think?
Well, I agree. But you mentioned something about patterns, though. I think it's very important. Being able to see the patterns is also critical to seeing around the corners, and a good leader is able to do that. So that is, I think, one of the key skill sets of a leader is being able to see further, see more than those around them, and being able to then kind of lead the team the direction that they need to go.
That's incredible. When did you get a chance? You said you were a consultant for 15 years, right?
The what?
You were a consultant for a few years?
Yes.
So were you an independent consultant or you were working for a bigger corporation?
I was with a firm, but our focus was healthcare IT, and we would help organizations either through interim leadership, putting in implementing programs, implementing applications. We were strategic advisors for healthcare IT departments across hospitals all over the country.
That's wonderful. So when was the first time you had a chance to lead in technology, where you had a group of people that you were responsible for?
I mean, besides like a project manager type, I mean, you many times you get to cut your teeth on it as a project manager and leading IT projects, and did that early on in my career. But as a consultant, what it forced me to do was not only being willing to lead teams, but do it in unknown environments, and being able to embrace being able to embrace vagueness and some, not knowing everything, but being willing to kind of walk through it and figure it out as you go. So
that on the unknown, right?
Exactly. And embracing the unknown so that you can then, find the solution.
I think you have you had the perfect formula for success for sure, Shane, because I run a consulting firm. Now that firm is 20 years old, right? We're going on consulting to businesses to raise their technology and create intellectual property for them. And one thing that is clear to me, before I did that, I was in Fortune 500 companies for 10 years, growing my leadership career there inside the corporations where all my clients were internal. So it was the same culture, kind of the same thing. The minute that I stepped into the consulting role, I realized that I had to make sure I was taking care of my external client, that they actually, their voice was heard, and they actually get them to agree and collaborate with my internal team so that we could actually create the outcome they wanted. So it's a completely different dynamic. Like, you have to make sure that your client is happy over and above their expectations. And that's a different mindset that being a leader inside a big corporation where like most of the time you have more leverage, right? And you went through both of them, right? One of my best friends, he was my mentor too. He was a consultant for most of his life, and once he decided, okay, it was time to settle down. I don't want to travel so much and stuff. He ended up being an IT director for a large insurance company here in town, and he went up the corporate ladder fast. I mean, like really fast, because he could really see how to show value to the departments he was serving and how to actually optimize resources too. Because he was trained on how not to waste resources, because when you're in a consulting firm, you have to make a profit. And that means you really have to control your cost and provide maximum with very little.
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So Shane, what is your future? What do you want to do? Like, how do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Oh, yeah, I wish I knew what I wanted to be when I grow up. I know where I'm going to end up, but ultimately, I like to lead teams. I like to develop people around me. One, I enjoy being the dumbest person in the room. It's important that you have others that are smarter and more creative, and being able to pull out of them things that they didn't even know they had inside them. That I enjoy doing. I would love to lead an organization at some point, if that's where I'm led. But bottom line is being able to make sure that the people around me are stronger and better because of me than before I was there. So that's, however I can do that in whatever role or capacity, that's my purpose.
That's wonderful. So with all the success and the career that you had, if you had access to a time machine and go back 20 years in time, what advice would you give yourself back then with the knowledge that you have now?
I would have said, pursue, back then I wasn't expecting to be in a leadership role. I mean, I did what I needed to do when I needed to do it. And I was really focused on taking care of patients. But I would have sought more opportunities to formally lead teams. That developed later on in my career, and I've loved doing it, but I would have probably pursued it a little bit earlier in my career than later in my career.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Shane. Out of your whole career, what has been some of the toughest problems that you had to face, and how do you overcame them?
I would say, goodness, our biggest problems. To be honest, it is moving an organization in the direction that they need to go before they even know they need to be there. And so sometimes you have to lead and pull a team along until they realize that's where they're needing to go. So it really, I think that the biggest challenge is moving the team around the goal at the time, and then seeing the issues that are coming and making sure they're ready for it before anyone else. And that's been kind of a consistent theme throughout my career. It's if you're willing to look down the road and see and prepare for it, then you'll have opportunities to prepare. And when your team gets there, they'll be much more productive and much more valuable. The organization will be stronger, all because you're looking further down the road. So it's hard to say one particular thing. Instead, it's more of a trend. It's always seeing down the road further than what you're used to seeing, and making sure that you're ready for it when the rest of the team gets there.
Beautiful. Being in healthcare, how do you handle the pandemic?
That was certainly a challenge.
That was pretty hard, right?
Unknown. That was completely unknown. It was uncharted territory for most of us. But to be honest, it was the same approach that we do every single day. You see a problem and you figure out a solution around it. And it was the leadership team and our associates working together to identify the need, but figure out solutions around it, and being willing to pivot and change based upon what new information is given to us. So we had to quickly move people outside the hospital so they could work remotely when that wasn't necessarily the culture that we had in place. So a lot of technical opportunities, but a lot of process opportunities too, just to make sure that our associates, but also our patients, stayed safe. And it was being willing to embrace the unknown and walk through it and figure it out as we go.
That's actually, it's becoming the pattern of this interview, isn't it?
It is. And that's healthcare. I'm sure it's that way in business as a whole, but bottom line is what has got your organization here won't get it where you want it to go. And you've got to embrace that unknown and be willing to walk through it as you're figuring it out, and then make sure whatever decision you make is the best decision based upon what you do. I mean, so you make sure your decisions are correct.
It's kind of what I told my team in a weekly meeting this week. I told them it's expecting a different result while doing exactly the same thing is a definition of insanity. And I didn't say that, it was Albert Einstein, right? And it's exactly what you're saying, right? Like, you have to embrace the unknown, and if you want to grow, there is nothing but not knowledge, unknown, right? Like, everything is unknown if you're growing, if you want to pivot, right?
Right. I mean, if you know everything around you, then you're clearly not pushing the limits and being innovative. You've got to truly be the best that your organization could be. You got to be willing to venture into the unknown.
For sure. Shane, almost 40 minutes have come by, and I have so much amazing wisdom from you. I really want to thank your time. I know you're a very busy executive, and I don't want to abuse it. So I'm going to ask you one last question before we finish. And I really want to thank you for being here. My last question is, if you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway in the USA, what would you write on it?
One, thank you very much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed this conversation too. If I had a billboard that I could put a message on, I would say passion trumps everything. If you believe in what you do and you're passionate about what you do, then you can figure out how to do it. Your team as well. Hiring for passion, bringing passion into the team. You can always learn the skills, develop skills that you need, but it's the passion that is key for anything. So I'd say live by passion and then learn as you go.
Oh, wow, Shane. I've been doing this podcast for over 2 years now. Nobody has ever talked about passion. And it's funny because I had 3-4 great mentors in my life. I have many other mentors, but like these guys were like the most. And one of my best mentors, she always told me, you have to develop passion, and then you got to hire people that have the same passion as you have.
Right.
And I didn't get it until I started implementing, and it's true. And one of the things is that you have to fall in love of what you do. And if you're not in love with what you're doing, and that's consuming most of your awakening life, you are doing something wrong. I mean, if you're just getting there to get a paycheck, there's many better ways to get a paycheck, right?
Oh, it's painful if that's all you're doing.
Right. So that concept of passion is so important. I really want to thank you for that last beautiful piece of wisdom.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk. I really enjoyed getting to know you as well, but can't wait to learn more from other guests in your future. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Wonderful, Shane. Thank you so much. People would like to ask you questions. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to put your profile there. Thank you, Shane. God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of the week.
You as well. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.